I can already feel the split reaction happening. Half of you are like, yes, childhood restored, cinema saved, give him the screen time, inject it into my veins. And the other half are sitting here going like, didn't we already do this? Didn't we already have the perfect send-off? Alright, so clearly we need to talk about the latest rumor floating around about the Marvel multiverse, because of course it's the multiverse again, that Tobey Maguire might be coming back for Avengers Doomsday. Yeah, that Tobey Maguire. And honestly, I don't know what to make of it yet. On one hand, Tobey coming back sounds exciting in the most nostalgic, crowd-pleasing way possible. The moment he walked through that portal in No Way Home, it worked. It wasn't just a cheap cameo, it had weight. It felt like closure. It felt like a thank you letter to fans who grew up with those early 2000s Spider-Man movies. But on the other hand, that's exactly why this news makes me nervous, because when something works well, the temptation to do it again, bigger, louder, more crossover-y, is almost impossible for studios to resist. And that's where things can start to feel less like storytelling and more like just recycling emotional moments. Now, to be clear, this isn't officially confirmed. This is one of those strong rumor, industry chatter, insider hinting at situations. But we've all been around long enough to know that when a rumor like this gains traction, there's usually at least something happening behind the scenes. Even if it's just early talks or contingency planning. And if Marvel is even considering bringing Tobey Maguire into Avengers Doomsday, it tells us a few things about where we're at right now. First, it tells us they are still heavily leaning on legacy characters to anchor these massive crossover events, which, again, worked in No Way Home, but that moment hit because it felt earned, and more importantly, rare. If every big Marvel movie starts pulling legacy heroes out of storage, the magic starts to wear off. It stops being, oh my god, I can't believe they did that, to, okay, or who are they bringing back this time? And that's the kind of tightrope Marvel is walking right now, because let's be honest, the MCU hasn't exactly been on a smooth run lately. There have been, I guess, kind of hits, but also a lot of projects that didn't land the way they were supposed to. Audience trust isn't gone, but it's definitely more cautious than it used to be. So when you hear that they might be bringing back Tobey Maguire, it's hard not to read that as a little bit of a safety net, a way to guarantee hype, a way to get people talking again. And hey, mission accomplished. We're talking about it. But hype alone doesn't carry a movie, especially not one that's supposed to be as big as Doomsday. If anything, it raises the stakes even higher. Because now people aren't just expecting a good movie, they're expecting an event. And if Tobey is in it, expectations go through the roof. People are going to want meaningful interactions. They're going to want emotional payoff. They're going to want him to actually matter to the story, not just show up, say a few lines, and disappear into the CGI chaos. And that's where I start to get cautious. Because think about how crowded these movies already are. Even without legacy characters, an Avengers film has to juggle a massive cast, multiple storylines, and some universe-level threat that probably involves timelines collapsing, or realities colliding, or, I don't know, Dr. Doom rewriting existence while standing on a floating rock. Now add Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to that mix. Where does he fit? Is he central to the plot? Is he part of a multiversal team? Is he just there for a big third act moment? Because if it's the last one, that's where things risk feeling a little hollow. And again, I don't want to sound overly negative here, because there is a version of this that works well. Tobey's Spider-Man isn't just another variant, he represents a completely different era of superhero movies. His presence carries a kind of emotional history that the newer characters just don't have yet. So if Marvel actually builds that into the story, if they treat him as more than just nostalgia, then yeah, I think this could be something special. But that requires restraint, and that's not always Marvel's strongest instinct when they're going big. There's also the question of whether bringing him back again risks undercutting what No Way Home already accomplished, because that movie gave him closure. It gave him a chance to reflect on his past, to mentor a young Spider-Man, to finally say the things his version of the character never got to say. It felt like a proper epilogue. So if he comes back again, you have to justify why. Not just in terms of plot, but in terms of character. What's left for him to learn? What's left for him to do? If the answer is just fight another big bad alongside a bunch of other superheroes, that's not really enough. And that's where I start to lean slightly pessimistic, because modern blockbuster storytelling doesn't always prioritize those kinds of character-driven reasons. Sometimes it's just about the spectacle. But, and this is important, I'm not completely down on the idea, because if there's one thing Marvel has proven before, it's that they can pull off the impossible when everything lines up. Not everybody thought Endgame was going to work out the way it did. That movie had an insane number of moving parts and somehow still delivered emotional moments that felt genuine and earned. There were also a lot of folks who doubted if No Way Home was going to be able to balance 3 Spider-Man without turning it into a mess, and yet, for the most part, it did. So it's not impossible that Avengers Doomsday could do the same thing. It just feels riskier this time. Partly because the novelty isn't as fresh anymore, partly because expectations are higher, and partly because Marvel doesn't quite have the same momentum that they had leading into those other successes. This would need to be really well written, really well structured, and really confident in what it's trying to say. Otherwise, it just ends up feeling like a greatest hits compilation instead of a cohesive story. And I think that's the core of the concern here. Are we getting a meaningful continuation of these characters, or are we just getting a highlight reel? Because those are 2 very different things, even if they look similar on the surface. Now let's talk about the upside for a second, because there is a big one. If Tobey Maguire does return and they give him real material to work with, this could be a chance to explore his version of Spider-Man in a way we haven't seen before. He's older now. He's lived his whole life beyond the original trilogy. There's potential there for a more reflective and experienced Peter Parker, someone who's seen it all and still chooses to do the right thing. That could actually add a lot of emotional depth to a massive crossover movie. And honestly, seeing him interact with characters outside of the Spider-Man bubble could be fascinating. Imagine him sharing scenes with characters who have completely different philosophies about heroism. Imagine him reacting to the scale of what the MCU has become. There's storytelling potential there. It just depends on whether the movie takes advantage of it, or skips past it in favor of the next big explosion. So yeah, I'm cautiously interested, maybe even cautiously hopeful. But I'm also very aware of how easily this could go wrong, because bringing back a beloved character is the easy part. Using them well, that's the hard part. And right now, Marvel doesn't just need big moments. They need moments that actually mean something again. If Tobey Maguire's return can contribute to that, then great. I'm all in. But if it's just another attempt to recapture past magic without really understanding why that magic worked in the first place, then I don't know, it might end up doing more harm than good. So for now, I'm keeping expectations in check. Excited? A little. Worried? Also a little. Curious? Definitely. And honestly, that might be the most accurate way to feel about Avengers Doomsday as a whole right now. We'll see where it goes. Just maybe don't promise us another Portal moment unless you're absolutely sure you can deliver on it, because lightning doesn't often strike twice, and sometimes it's better to leave a great moment exactly where it is. So, do you think this could actually work? Do you even want to see Tobey Maguire back in the red and blue? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.